Alright, hi. Sorry everyone, this is KE5ICX. I am net control for tonight. I had a little problem. I overslept. I took a little nap and I overslept. So I was just getting things up and running here. So I am now here and we will go ahead and get started. Let me see, does anyone need to use the repeater before we get started? I doubt it, but I'll ask anyway. This is Kilo Echo 5 India Charlie X-Ray, KE5ICX. My name is Tom and I'll be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky and astronomy and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic. We encourage your cooperation. Sure, why not? Participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the road sign break, followed by their call sign. Let's see here. Is there any emergency or priority traffic at this time? This is a directed net, therefore please do not transmit without direction from the net control. And that would be me this evening. Stations are reminded to ID at the end of their transmissions. The weekly net is operated on this frequency with a field tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echo Link are also possible by using the W5FC-R station ID or Echo Link node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available. You just have to go to w5fc.org. Right now for a complete list. Remember to tell others about this popular net. All amateur operators are welcome, and you need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate this evening. Net is 90 minutes long, or thereabouts, maybe a little short tonight, you'll find out, and it's structured in several parts. We have general announcements. We have Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas, where and when you can look through the telescope. Dallas National Space Society events. Discussion topic of the evening this evening was up space exploration, space history, the Constellation of the week, space launches of the week, recent astronomical discoveries, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days, astronomical Q&A in the 73 round. All stations licensed on this frequency are invited to check in. Let's see here. So let's go ahead and get started. Do I have any low power short time check-ins this evening?
This is
Uniform Alpha Uniform David on an HT in Mesquite.
This is Whiskey 5 Golf Uniform Sierra Gus, far northeast Dallas at low power.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony in Dallas. Kilo 5, Mike, Charlie Delta, Cody in Dallas.
All right, let's go ahead and hold up there for a moment. I had low power short time, so let me get these folks checked in. I will need one fill, and then we'll move on to additional check-ins. I think I got K5KOB Philip over in Wills Point. I got you checked in. I believe it's David in Mesquite, KF5UAU, is that correct? You were covered over by Philip there for a second.
Kilo India 5, Uniform Alpha Uniform.
Okay. KI5UAU, David in Mesquite, on HT, 35GUS Gus, far northeast Dallas, low power, NT5TM Tony in Dallas, and K5MCD Cody in Dallas. I'll go ahead and ask any of you five if you have anything for the net this evening that you want to bring now before you disappear into the ether. Please come with your call. Okay, hearing none, we're going to go ahead and move on to general check-ins. If you'd like to join us, please come with your call sign, your name, and where you're transmitting from.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Juliet Hotel Alpha. My heart is at Ohio Stadium, but my body's in Mesquite.
Alpha 5, Alpha Hotel Robert Richardson.
Okay, we're starting out a little slow. I've got KF5JHA, Chaz in Mesquite. I got AA5AH, Robert in Richardson. Additional check-ins, please come out.
Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brenda in Dallas.
Oh, it's going to be a slow one tonight. Let's see. I've got WB50ZL, Miss Brenda, over in Dallas. I've got K5, Whiskey Victor Lima. That's James in Carrollton. Any additional check-ins, please come out.
This is Whiskey Bravo number 4, Mike Foxtrot India, WB4MFI, Ted Dallas, low power.
Okay, we picked up one more, WB4MFI. That's Ted in Dallas, low power. I have you checked in. Now move over to Echolink. If you're on Echolink and have not checked in and would like to do so, please now come with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from. Echolink only, please.
This is Kilo 5, Kilo Tango X-Ray Kelly, in point.
Zero, Mike Bravo Charlie, Shane Blue Springs, and
Bethany, hi guys.
Okay, picked up two more. I got K5KTX, Miss Kelly, over in Point, and W0MBC, that's Shane and Bethany, over in Blue Springs. Glad to have you back, guys. I will now open it to anywhere, any place. If you'd like to join us, please come with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from.
Alpha Golf 5, Zulu Mike Golf, Joe in
Golf 5, Juliet Papa Uniform, Anthony in Benbrook on Echolink.
Okay, I guess 2 by 2 we're getting them. I've got 2 more. I got KG5ZMG, that's Joe over in Arlington, and KG5JPU, Anthony in Pembroke. Okay, well, I guess we'll just get started at this point. Not too bad. I guess we have 14 check-ins. So let me see here. We've done Echolink, done an open round. We have general announcements. Do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? These can be of ham, astronomical, space, or of general interest to life and ham.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
NT5TM, Tony, go ahead, and go slowly. I've still got to do some setup over here, so please go ahead from KE5I6.
Oh, no problem. The kitchen here is full of steaming vapors and frying sausage and sauteing onions. And what am I going to do after all this? Oh, it's so hard. Wait, it's not ham fixins night, but the kitchen smells great. If I'm wondering what I'm going to do after all the meat is sauteed and all the vegetables are browned and ready, well, that's perfect, because the Afterglow movie tonight is called After. It's from 2012, and I don't actually think it's that bad, but it never really caught on. Great independent science fiction tends to attract a wonderful audience. All the people who signed on to Donnie Darko and contributed money. Oh, what a great movie. Sadly, that's not our movie tonight. We're talking about After from 2012. What do you do after the onions are sauteed? But of course, that's by no means the only thing going on. It's the second Sunday coming up. No meeting on the air, no races trending up there. But it's also a great time for MCOM 101 on the first Monday, November 13th. We'll meet here at 7. We'll talk about emergency communications and public service. You don't have to be a member of any club or group, which is great, because we have a ton of public service events coming up. We've got the Turkey Roll on November 18th. There's a sign-up link available at w5fc.org. We have Turkey Trot, which is about 1,000 times more important to us here at the DARC, on Thanksgiving Thursday, November 23rd. That's our sticky post. It's our first post at w5fc.org. I really want to see you there because, oh man, my first year I ever did public service, I did the marathon and Turkey Trot, and I haven't missed one yet of either kind. And finally, as you might have guessed, on December 10th, we have the Dallas Marathon. It's actually a 4-day event, but they don't really need ham support for things like a 5K or an indoor fitness expo at the Dallas Convention Center because they're not that big. But that Sunday, they need a ton of support. They need 100 hams or more. You can go to your favorite search engine and search for Dallas Marathon comms, or go to w5fc.org. Underneath the Turkey Trot post, there's a really ugly, boring post I made that has a link to sign up for Turkey Roll and Turkey Trot and and Dallas Marathon. I hope you'll sign up for all three. So I'd love to have your company at all the nets, but I'd really love to have your company even more in person. I'm in the kitchen, I'm cooking, and I'd love to share. I hope to see you there. NT5TM, back to net.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tony. I appreciate that. I get the slideshow up and running while you were doing that. You know what? When the slides fall on the floor, you got to put them back in the cassette, in the carousel, put the carousel back into the machine, turn it on, and run it. It takes a little while, and that was exactly the time I needed in order to do that. Does anyone need any fills, have any questions? All of it's on W5FC-org, but if you have a question now, please ask it. Okay, hearing none, I'll go ahead and tell you a few of the nets. Most of you know about this, but I will go through them quickly. Don't forget the AMSAT amateur radio satellite group. 2 nets available in Dallas. One is on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. here on this repeater. Let me start with that one in Dallas. This is called Dallas AMSAT Net East. It's at 8 o'clock, of course, on this frequency. Tom N5HYP is the net control. He also does AMSAT Net Wednesday evenings at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater at 147.140 megahertz with a PO tone of 110 decimal minor with a positive offset. Everything you need to know about amateur satellites, how to contact them, how to find them, what's going on in the AMSAT community. Tom is very knowledgeable and very engaging, so please, indeed, come in and visit one of those 2 nets, either on this repeater or the Arlington repeater on Wednesday. We also have the AMSAT national net that goes on. This one is out of Houston, but can be picked up on Echolink, or you can go to their website, which is amsatnet.com. There's a live link there, or go to AMSAT on Echolink, and you can check in there as well. Let's see, what else do we got? We have the DARC nets, which are as follows. On Monday evenings, there's a rotating set of nets. On the first week, we have Ham Fixin's net. It's all about cooking. Yes. What else would you want to talk about on ham radio but cooking? Well, maybe the ham part, but as we all know, hams not only like to eat, they like to cook. So come on the first and third week. Second helping on Mondays at 7 o'clock. Second week is MCOM 101. All things having to do with emergency communications. It is a formalized net, but it's anybody can join. Find out information about emergency communications. Fourth week is GeekNet. We just geek out about everything that has to do with ham radio and beyond. And the fifth week, we have a surprise net. We told you what it is. It wouldn't be a surprise. On-air participation is always encouraged. We just had one come up here last month, and it was a lot of fun. Let's see. Fridays, we have Cert City simulation at 8 p.m. Learn about emergency radio communications to cert-trained amateur radio operators. That one is hosted by Melissa, who handles net control responsibilities. She's KI50H. And you can find out more about the most disaster-prone city in the universe every Friday night, Cert City. That's at 8 p.m. Saturdays, of course, is the night of nets. We have starting with TechNet at 7 o'clock, followed by Skynet at 9 o'clock or a little later if the net control doesn't swoop in. And then at 10:30, the Afterglow Movie Net, which I will read to you in just a moment. And then every night of the week at 6:30, 7 days a week, is the ARR National Traffic System Training Net. That's where you get an opportunity to work with formalized traffic on a formalized network. So if you're brand new to amateur radio, this is a great one to start on. All you need is an HD. And because it's a training net, you can do no wrong. It's actually, when I got into amateur radio, A long time ago, this was the first net that I checked in on, so definitely worth your time and effort. If you're a little bashful about getting on the air, this is a great place. And if you're an old ham and been around for a while, it's also a great place to meet folks and social. All right, here we go. I'm going to tell you about tonight's Afterglow Movie Net, which is at 10:30 p.m. Tony was right. I put down 2019. The year was 2012. The movie came out. This is my highly accurate synopsis of the story. Anna and Freddie sat on a bus together, headed to a science fiction convention. They had quite a bit in common. She was a failed writer, and he was a failed comic book artist. Both hated the movie The Wizard of Mars. They had that in common. The bus driver heard the conversation and offered his 2 cents. Yeah, I hated that movie too. The dialogue was stiff, like the 7th graders wrote it. He pulled both hands from the bus steering wheel, and the bus careened off a convenient cliff. Anna woke up in her own bed. The Wizard of Mars movie playing on the background on her television. Join us for After tonight at 10:30. After. We'll be talking about after Skynet on the Afterglow Movie Net. See, lots of afters. You can keep up with all the DARC events, nets, and activities by going to the club website, which is w5fc.org. And does anyone need any fills? Okay, well, now it's time to go to the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas event, where and when you can look through a telescope. That would be Chaz. He is checked in, KF5JHA. Chaz, take it away, please.
Thank you, Tom. The next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting will be held on Friday, November the 17th. Oh, that's in like 6 days. And the meeting will be held at 7:30 p.m. in person only at the University of Texas at Dallas, because the featured activity is an auction. TAS has several different things, 22 of them, that they've acquired over the years that they don't have any need for, so they'll be auctioned off. Highest bid wins. Saturday night public observing sessions continue. Skynet was picked to be on Saturday night so that there'd be an opportunity for reports from the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas public observing sessions. On the second Saturday of the month, that's tonight, the stargazing is held at Frisco. Tonight's stargazing was canceled due to clouds. Check the TAS website, texasastro.org, for up-to-date information and details about meetings and public observing sessions. And this is KF5JHA, back to our net control. Is it father or grandfather, Tom?
Oh, it doesn't matter anymore. I'm just old, so you can call me whatever you want. Okay, thank you, Chaz, I think. Next up is National Space Society of Events and Activities. Now, I don't see on my list N5BB. That would be Bill. He normally gives information out. Let me see if maybe he's late. He might be here because somebody tried to rustle me out of bed to do this net. So, Bill, N5BB. Bill, are you there? Okay, I am under the impression it was not he who did that. So let me go ahead and tell you about the National Space Society. This is the National Space Society of North Texas. It's an active Facebook page. Just type in National Space Society of North Texas, which is what I just did, so you can see it on the screen in the search box, and you can request for access, receive meeting reminders, and club activities. By the way, the National Space Society of North Texas is the chapter winner last year of the most active, most interesting, best-looking people win the chapter. so it is well worth your time and effort. They have some really good meetings on Sundays. You can get the information on that. You can go to ntx.nss.org, though I have to say that goes to the national website and then it redirects over to their website. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to forward. So I keep forgetting to tell Bill about that, but you can go ahead and get the information for now, which is facebook.com/NSS of NT, and that'll get you the same place. Or just type in National Space Society of North Texas, and it'll pop right up. All right, next up is the topic of the evening. Well, let me do this. Let me go ahead and take additional check-ins before I do that. If you'd like to join us this evening, please come with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from.
This is November 5, Oscar Foxtrot, flight Embassy.
Okay, we picked up one more. That would be Clay, N5OF over in Mesquite. Welcome back, Clay. Okay, well, let's see. My topic this evening is pretty straightforward. We lost Frank Borman, one of the Apollo astronauts from the crew of Apollo 8. I picked up a little bit of information about him. We will recover this under space history and recent events, but I thought, well, let's give him a little bit of airtime. We lost Ken Mattingly from Apollo 16. Here's command module pilot from, when was it? Just last week. So we don't have many of the Apollo astronauts left. Hopefully here next year they'll have a chance to at least see a new crew go to the moon since 1972. But we shall see. I hope so. So let me tell you a little bit about Frank. I also have, don't forget the slideshow, and that is going on over on Echolink. You can find it at w5fc.org. So here's a very, very brief history of Frank. He was an Air Force test pilot, astronaut, and accomplished businessman who led the first crew to fly to the moon in 1968. He died Tuesday in Montana. NASA said Thursday he was 95 years old. Today we remember one of NASA's best. NASA Administrator Bill Nelson said in a statement, astronaut Frank Borman was a true American hero. Among his many accomplishments, he served as commander of the Apollo 8 mission, humanity's first mission around the moon in 1968. Borman, joined by crewmates Jim Lovell and Bill Anders, orbited the moon 10 times over the course of about 20 hours. They were the first people to see Earth from another world. A memory of wonderment, Borman recalled decades later. Apollo 8 produced one of the most famous photos ever taken, the iconic Earthrise shown as a blue orb and setting for all of human history until then, suspended in the blackness of space over the charcoal gray of the moon's cratered surface. The Earth looked so lonely in the universe, Borman said in the NASA oral history. It's the only thing with color. All of our emotions were focused back there with our families as well. So that was the most emotional part of the flight for me. Borman was born in Gary, Indiana on March 14, 1928, and raised in Tucson, Arizona. He learned to fly airplanes as a teenager and then attended the U.S. Military Academy at West Point before earning his commission in the Air Force to start training as a fighter pilot. Following a similar career path to that of other early astronauts, Borman became an experimental test pilot, receiving a master's degree in aeronautical engineering from Caltech, and served a stint as an assistant professor at West Point. NASA accepted applications for a second class of astronauts in 1962 to follow the original Mercury 7. Borman was one of the new 9 astronauts, and he reported for training in Houston. Known for his no-nonsense approach to space flight, Borman was razor-focused on mission objectives. For Apollo 8, those were to fly to the moon, take pictures of future Apollo landing sites, and return to Earth safely, and importantly, to do it before the Russians. He didn't want to take a video camera on Apollo 8, worried that it would distract from the more important task, but was overruled by, I lost my place here, overruled by NASA management. I was dumb in that, Borman later admitted. After returning from the moon, Borman recalled the only guidance he received was from Julian Scheer, the NASA public relations official, regarding what to say to people back on Earth. Quote, do something appropriate. The rest was left up to Borman. He decided, he credited his wife and his friend for the advice to read the book of Genesis. I thought it was wonderful, Borman said. Borman's commentary on the moon's appearance from an altitude of 60 miles reads like a Bruto description of a barren wasteland. I know my own impression is it was this vast, lonely, forbidding type existence, great expanse of nothing, and looks rather like clouds and clouds of pumice stone, and it certainly would not appear to be a very inviting place to live or work. Apollo 8 was Borman's second flight into space, following a 2-week flight in low Earth orbit in 1965 on a Gemini 7, the longest duration space flight until that time. NASA managers appointed Borman to the board investigating the Apollo 1 fire in 1967, which killed Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee during a ground test at Cape Canaveral, Florida. Borman played a critical role in the aftermath of the tragedy, serving as the only voice of the astronaut office on the Board of Inquiry and vehemently defending the Apollo program to Congress. These were dark times for NASA, with real risk that the agency would miss its directive from President Kennedy to land an astronaut on the moon by the end of the 1960s. The more we probed for answers, the more depressed people in the investigation got, Borman later wrote. But the moon program survived, and Borman oversaw the implementation of changes to the Apollo spacecraft, to North American aviation in Downey, California, to eliminate the problems which led to the fire. With flights set to resume after the Apollo 1 tragedy, Borman was assigned to a mission to test the Apollo lunar module in high orbit around Earth, part of a stepping stone approach to prove the lander was ready to fly to the moon. But circumstances changed in mid-1968 when the CIA reported the Soviet Union might launch a crew around the moon by the end of the year. That would have been an embarrassment for NASA and in its race with the Russians. George Low, a high-ranking official at the space agency, suggested a change in plans. The first lunar module would not be ready for testing in space until early 1969. So in August, Low proposed sending only the Apollo Command and Service Module on a flight around the moon in December. It was a bold move. When Deep Slate, the chief of the astronaut office, asked Borman if he wanted to fly Apollo 8 to the moon, the commander didn't hesitate to sign up his crew for the mission. In the end, no Soviet cosmonauts have ever flown around the moon. There's no question that the accelerated emphasis on Apollo 8 going to the moon in the final analysis, the Apollo program was a battle for the Cold War, Borman said. It was a political move. Borman, Lovell, and Anders trained for 4 months for the lunar mission, and a compressed training schedule that required the astronauts and their support teams to work long days and weekends. Not only did the mission carry astronauts farther from Earth than ever before, but the astronauts became the first people to launch on top of the giant Saturn V rocket, a relatively unproven vehicle with only 2 test flights going into Apollo 8. It all worked like a charm. Time magazine named the Apollo 8 astronauts their Men of the Year, and Borman traveled to Europe and the Soviet Union on publicity tour in partnership on the Apollo-Soyuz mission 6 years later. When Apollo 11 launched the first people on the moon by July 1969, Borman was a NASA liaison at the White House. He helped persuade President Nixon not to play the Star-Spangled Banner or stage an over-the-top ceremony marking the landing. Instead, Nixon kept his remarks short. With Apollo 11 in the history books, Borman moved on from NASA and retired as a colonel from the Air Force, foregoing any chance of flying to the moon again. I didn't care about picking up rocks or anything, he later said, with a characteristic bluntness. I wanted to beat the Soviets to the moon. Michael Collins, who wrote one of the most intriguing memoirs of any Apollo astronaut, described Borman as aggressive and capable. Borman, Collins wrote, makes decisions faster than anyone I've ever met, with an amazingly good batting average, which would be even better if he slowed down a bit. Writing in 1974, Collins predicted Borman would be one of the most successful Apollo astronauts after leaving NASA. This projection hit the mark. After leaving government service in 1970, Borman became an executive at Eastern Airlines, eventually becoming the CEO in 1975. Borman resigned from Eastern in 1986 and served on several corporate boards late in his career. In retirement, he found new passions in ranching and rebuilding old airplanes. Susan, his wife of 71 years, died in 2021. Before his death, Borman was the oldest living former NASA astronaut, 11 days older than Jim Lovell, his Gemini 7 and Apollo 8 crewmate, who now assumes the role. Borman's death comes just a week after another Apollo astronaut, Ken Mattingly, who flew in orbit around the moon on Apollo 16 in 1972. Of the 24 people who traveled to the moon on Apollo missions, 8 are still alive. Jim Lovell, Bill Anders, Tom Stafford, Buzz Aldrin, Fred Hayes, Dave Scott, Charlie Duke, and Jack Schmitt. As the remaining members of the first generation of lunar explorers reached their late 80s and early 90s, 4 younger astronauts, all born after the Apollo landing, are training for NASA's Artemis II mission, which is expected to fly around the moon in 2025. A lunar landing mission with astronauts will follow later in the 2020s. This is the closest anyone has gotten to returning to the moon since the end of Apollo. Frank knew the proper exploration held in uniting humanity when he said, "Exploration is really the essence of the human spirit," said Nelson, NASA's administrator. His service to NASA and our nation will undoubtedly fuel the Artemis generation to reach new cosmic shores. And that's my presentation this evening. Happy to give it to you. I'm sorry that it had to be Frank Borman. And by the way, up until his death, that was the only complete crew still alive from the Apollo mission. All 3 astronauts until his death earlier this week. Does anyone have any questions or have any comments? Please come with your call now. All right, well, with that, we're going to go ahead and move on to What's Up. That would be Chaz. Chaz, I'm ready for you. The carousel is on, and the projector is set up. The screen is up, so we're ready for you. Please go ahead with your presentation. This is KE5 ITX.
Is that a Kodak slide projector? This is Chaz, KF5JHA. And we call this segment of Skynet What's Up because it's all about what's going on astronomically over the next couple of weeks. That was slide number 1, Slide Master. Slide number 2, please. On November, did you hear the click? Does it change to the slide? On November the 5th, the moon phase was 3rd quarter. So the current phase of the moon is a waning crescent. On November the 13th, the moon phase is new. On November the 20th, the moon phase is 1st quarter. On November the 21st, the moon is at perigee, which is a point in the moon's orbit that is closest to the Earth at a distance of 369,818 kilometers. The moon is full on November the 27th. The moon is at 3rd quarter on December the 4th. Also, December the 4th, the moon is at apogee, which is a point in the moon's orbit that is furthest from the Earth at a distance of 404,346 kilometers. Slide Master, slide number 3, please. Tonight, On November the 11th and 12th, the Orionid meteor shower peaks. This meteor shower can have half a dozen meteors or so per hour just before dawn if it clears off. You can get more information about meteors and meteor showers at the International Meteor Organization at IMO.net or the American Meteor Society at amsmeteors.org. Slide master, slide number 4, please. On November the 14th, the Moon and Mercury are in conjunction in the western evening sky. Mercury's been in the morning sky for a little while now. It's swung back into the evening sky. Slide master, slide number 5. On November the 17th, 18th, the Leonid meteor shower peaks. It's a famous meteor shower. This meteor shower can have between a couple of dozen meteors to over 400 meteors per hour just before dawn. You can get more information again and about meteors and meteor showers at IMO.net or amsmeteors.org. Slide master, slide number 6. On November the 20th, the Moon and Saturn are in conjunction in the southern evening sky. In fact, it's pretty high overhead. Slide master, slide number 7. And on November the 20th, 21st, the Alpha Monoceroids meteor shower peaks. This meteor shower can have maybe about half a dozen meteors per hour, and occasionally it will have a storm level of 400 meteors per hour. What will it be this year? Don't know. We'll have to wait and see until after the fact. Slide master, slide number 8, please. On November the 21st, the Moon and Neptune are in conjunction in the evening sky. You'll need a telescope to see Neptune. Saw it the other night at Brookhaven campus, yes, even with all the bright lights. But if you have a telescope, we had an 8-inch Cassegrain, and we saw it. We also saw Uranus that night, too. Those are two planets you really probably need optical aid to find, especially inside the city. Slide master, slide number 9. Remember that we have another solar eclipse coming up in about 6 months. A solar eclipse is when the moon is in between the Earth and the sun, and for a few very lucky people on the Earth, the moon blocks some or all of the sunlight from our field of view. Slide master, slide number 10. On April the 8th, 2024, this is a total solar eclipse for us here in North Texas. From Brookhaven campus, the sun will be completely blocked out for 3 minutes and 20 seconds between 1:41 and 1:44 p.m. During that time, called totality, you'll be able to see stars in the sky, just like it were evening twilight. Now, the next total solar eclipse after that, visible from North Texas, won't be until the year 2317 on July the 9th. So this total solar eclipse is a very big deal since it happens only about once every 300 years in North Texas. By the way, all the downtown hotels that weekend have already been booked solid, and there's going to be a street festival, from my understanding, with streets being closed. That's a Monday. Maybe you can take the day off. And this is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide master, slide number 11. Once again, the next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting is going to be held in 6 days on November the 17th. The meeting will be held at 7:30 p.m. in person at the University of Texas at Dallas, and only in person. We will not have a Zoom session because it's an auction. Task like 22 items there is required over the years. It's happening. So it'll be on. You can check for more information about the Texas Astronomical Society at texasastro.org. Now, slide master, slide number 12. Do any of you out there in Radio Land have any questions or need a fill on any of the information? Maybe you just have a general astronomy question. Come now with your call sign if you have a question or need a fill.
W5GUS.
With your call sign, it's hard to know who you are, Gus. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chaz. W5GUS here. On that mission to the asteroid, The asteroid, I think, was called, it was in the a Trojan asteroid, a Trojan belt, I guess, a Trojan area. I was curious how they named, why is it named Trojan area, W5GUS? Is there a reason why it's a Trojan area, W5GUS?
That is a great question. There's different areas in our solar system that have different subtitles or names for different groups of asteroids, and those are Trojans that you're talking about. Kelly, I bet she can tell us, K5KTX, she's a solar system ambassador. Do you have that information, Kelly? Kelly's over on Echolink, and she started doing some moving yesterday, so I'm not sure if she might be asleep at the switch. Hope you get your rest, Kelly. All right, I don't remember. That's the reason why I was referring to Kelly. So, Gus, we'll have to do some searching on the internet to find that answer. KF5JHA, well, this is slide number 13. So does the moon wane? So do these words for this segment of Skynet: stay safe, keep well, pray for a world. It's the only one where humans live. And until next time, actually, I may be doing another segment on Skynet, depending on whether I have time. Keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is KF5JHA, back to our net control. Tom, it's all yours.
Well, thank you, Chaz. Thank you for doing that piece presentation, and we look forward to the second half. I'm pretty sure we're going to have enough time to do that. Okay, well, let's see. We will move on to the next section. That would be space exploration and space history. This week it is Brenda, WB50ZL. She has presentation responsibilities this evening, so I'm going to call on her. Please go ahead with your space exploration, space history information. WB50ZL from KE5ICX.
N5BB.
You're not WB50ZL, but go ahead, Bill, and I will check you in.
This is N5BB. Do you want me to give a real quick National Space Society thing? I'm sorry, I wasn't fast enough on the microphone button earlier.
Yeah, that'll be fine, Bill. And just for the note, you may want to talk to your folk. I keep forgetting to tell you this, so I'm going to tell you now while I think of it. The redirect over on the main page for National Space Society is not going to your website, the North Texas. So, but please go ahead from KE5ICX.
Oh, I will look at that. Our meeting is tomorrow. I'm sorry, to get out of order. I was on a long telephone call earlier. This is N5BB. I happen to be the membership director and member at large of the National Space Society North Texas chapter. Our meeting is normally on the second Sunday of every month. So our November meeting is tomorrow, November the 11th. Our speaker will be Dr. Pascal Lee. He'll be a virtual speaker. He is works for NASA and is the head of the Mars Society, I believe, and many other things he does involving space exploration, the moon and Mars. So he'll be speaking about humans traveling, visiting the moon and Mars tomorrow for our meeting. The meeting will be as normal at Spring Creek Barbecue in Irving on the northeast corner, the southwest corner of Beltline and Highway 183 in Irving, starting at 3:30 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. If you'd like to watch it virtually via WebEx, you need to send me an email like tonight. Don't wait till the last minute or I won't see it. But if you send me an email tonight or tomorrow morning, well before noon, at n5bb@arrl.net or space@byrom.net, space@byrom.net, byrom.net, and tell me you want to look at our WebEx meeting tomorrow about Mars and the Moon, and I will be glad to send you the link so you can register. You have to register with the link. We've had several local events recently. The last Saturday we had an event at UT Dallas involving Jonathan Brandenburg, KF5. I'm going to forget his call sign, but Jonathan Brandenburg, Virginia Smith, NV5F, and myself. And that was kind of fun. Tomorrow, of course, we have the meeting. And then our normal space rendezvous event on the last Friday of every month was at 54th Street Bar and Grill in Irving. Unfortunately, that location closed a couple of weeks ago. So we've moved it to Cheddar's, which is near, it's near MacArthur and Highway 180, and 635 in Irving. Cheddar's restaurant near, on 635, near Torchy's Tacos and near MacArthur in Irving. And that will be on Friday the 24th of November, the night after Thanksgiving. Our December meeting will be on Sunday, December the 10th at my house here in Irving. That's all I've got in 5BB. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Bill. Does anybody have any, if you need any fills or have any questions, please come with your call. Okie dokie, we're going to move on to Brenda at WB5OZL. Miss Brenda, please go ahead with your presentation for space exploration and space history.
Thank you, Tom. This is Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima. And I had prepared a little paragraph on Frank Borman. I'm going to skip it because Tom pretty much already covered all of that. So move on. NASA's Juno finds Jupiter winds penetrate in cylindrical layers. Gravity data collected by NASA's Juno mission indicates Jupiter's atmospheric winds penetrate the planet in a cylindrical manner parallel to its spin axis. A paper on the findings was recently published in the journal Nature Astronomy. The violent nature of Jupiter's roiling atmosphere has long been a source of fascination for astronomers and planetary scientists. And Juno has had a ringside seat to the goings-on since it entered orbit in 2016. During each of the spacecraft's 55 to date, a suite of science instruments has peered below Jupiter's turbulent cloud deck to uncover how the gas giant works from the inside out. One way the Juno mission learns about the planet's interior is via radio science. Using NASA's Deep Space Network antennas, scientists track the spacecraft radio signal as Juno flies past Jupiter at speeds near 130,000 miles per hour, measuring tiny charges in its velocity as small as 0.01 millimeter per second. These changes are caused by variations in the planet's gravity field, and by measuring them, the mission can essentially see into Jupiter's atmosphere. Such measurements have led to numerous discoveries, including the existence of a dilute core deep within Jupiter and the depth of the planet's zones and belts, which extend from the cloud tops down approximately 1,860 miles. Next up, immediately recently fell in Somalia turns out to contain two minerals never before seen on Earth. A giant meteorite that fell in Somalia in 2020 contains at least two minerals that have never before been seen on our planet. The minerals have been identified by researchers at the University of Alberta, according to a press release. Tons of space material enters the Earth's atmosphere every day, but very few actually survive the journey through the atmosphere and hit the ground. Instead, they tend to burn up instantly from the outside in, as friction with the atmosphere causes them to ablate. For this reason, a few large meteorites reach the planet's surface, and the one that fell near the town of El Ali in Somalia is definitely an exception. The Celestial making it the ninth largest meteorite ever found. The 15-ton El Ali meteorite found in Somalia is the ninth. That's redundant. After a small piece of the meteorite weighing about 2.5 ounces was sent to the University of Alberta for classification, researchers identified two minerals that are not found on Earth. Whenever you find a new mineral, it means that the actual geological conditions, the chemistry of the rock, was different than what's been found before, said Chris Hurd, professor in the Department of Earth and Atmospheric Sciences and curator of the University of Alberta's meteorite collection. That's what makes this exciting. In this particular meteorite, you have two officially described minerals that are new to science. Next up, birthdays, and we have a bunch this week. First, Alan G. Poindexter, November 5, 1961. He flew on STS-121 and 122 and 131. Charles O. Hobaugh, November 5th, 1961. STS-104, 118, and 129. Alvin Drew, November 5th, 1962. STS-118 and 133. Robert J. Sinker, November 5th, 1948. STS-61C. Margaret Rhea Seddon, November 8th, 1947, STS-51D, 40, and 58. Edward Gibson, November 8th, 1936, Skylab 4. Dale Gardner, November 8th, 1948, STS-8 and 51A. Robert E. Lawyer, November 8th, 1932. He didn't fly on any missions, but he was selected for the USAF MOL Group 1. Ronald Evans, November 10th, 1933, Apollo 17. Mark T. Van de Hey, November 10th, 1966, Soyuz MS-06, Expedition 53-54, Soyuz MS-18, Soyuz MS-19, Expedition 64-65-66. Mike Melville, November 11th, 1940, Spaceship One Flight 15P and Spaceship One Flight 16P. And finally, Gregory R. Wiseman, November 11th, 1975, Soyuz TMA-13M, Expedition 4041, and Artemis 2. This week in space history, November 9th, 1967, the Apollo 4 launch. Apollo 4, also known as SA-501, was the first uncrewed test flight of the Saturn V launch vehicle, the rocket that eventually took astronauts to the moon. The space vehicle was assembled in the Vehicle Assembly Building, which was the first to be launched from Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Ascending from Launch Complex 39, where facilities built especially for the Saturn V had been constructed. The mission splashed down in the Pacific Ocean slightly less than 9 hours after launch, having achieved its objectives. NASA considered the mission a complete success, proving that the Saturn V worked, an important step towards achieving the main objective of landing astronauts on the moon and bringing them back safely before the end of the 60s. Apollo 4 was the first mission to fly under the official Apollo mission numbering scheme approved by Mueller on April 24, 1967. The planned first crewed flight, in preparation for which 3 astronauts had died, was retroactively designated Apollo 1 as the widows of the crew members had requested. Although 3 uncrewed Saturn 1B flights had already occurred, only 2 had contained an Apollo spacecraft. AS-203 carried only the aerodynamic nose cone. Mueller resumed the numbering sequence in Apollo 4 without designating an Apollo 2 or 3. And on November 7, 1967, the launch of Surveyor 6. Surveyor 6 soft-landed on the moon's Sinus Mediac region. The lander is also notable in that it was the first spacecraft to launch from another celestial body. Before termination of operations on November 17, 1967, Surveyor 6 was commanded to fire its 3 main liquid propellant thrusters for 2.5 seconds. As a result, the lander became the first spacecraft to be launched from the lunar surface. Surveyor 6 lifted up to about 10 feet before landing about 8 feet west of its original landing point. That is all I have. Back to net, WB50ZL.
Very good, and thank you, Brenda, for that report. This is KE5ICX, and this is Skynet. I'll go ahead and take additional check-ins. It's been kind of slow this evening, but we'll see if maybe there's some stragglers out there. If you'd like to join us this evening, please come down with your call sign phonetically.
November Victor 5 Foxtrot, Virginia in Fort Worth.
Okay, we picked up one more. We got NV5F, Virginia, over in Fort Worth. Okay, next up is Chaz again. Chaz, run back to the radio. It's time for Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. So Chaz, K5JJ, please go ahead.
Thank you. Get that slide projector ready. Slide number 14, please. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of Silent T. Carolyn, KC5OZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week almost from its beginning in 2012 until May of 2019 with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Since there are about 52 easily visible constellations in Texas throughout the year, out of the 88 total constellations, so Miss Carolyn covered the entire sky seen over North Texas in a year. In her honor, we've continued that tradition of a constellation per week and named this segment after her. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week this week is Pegasus, the winged horse. Now, you remember the myth. I talked about this last week. Pegasus was the flying horse that was being ridden by Perseus, and Perseus rescued Andromeda from the sea monster Cetus. Andromeda's mother and father is Cetus and Cassiopeia. Cepheus and Cassiopeia bragged that their daughter was more fair than the sea nymphs. Poseidon sent the sea monster. And anyway, Perseus had to rescue them. And all of those characters, all those main characters in the story are constellations. They didn't have TVs back then, so they had these stories and they looked up in the sky and said, oh, look, there it is, yeah. Okay, Slide Master, slide number 15, the jokes of the week, the reason why Skynet exists. All right, here we go. Did you hear about the pony that was sick? Yep, he was a little horse. What do you call a horse that likes to stay up late? That would be a nightmare. Why do cowboys like to ride horses? Because the horses are too heavy to carry. What kind of food do racehorses like to eat? Well, fast food, of course. What do you call a horse that lives next door to you? A neighbor. So when does Mr. Ed the horse talk? When he feels like it. I thought that was the best of the bunch. And this is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 16, please. Messier object, the number 15, is a globular cluster located 4 degrees from Enif, which is the nose of Pegasus. M15 is believed to be about 30,000 light years in distance. It shines at around magnitude 6.3, which makes it bright enough for sharp-eyed folks in a very dark sky with unaided view of it. You can see without binoculars. I actually observed it through the 8-inch telescope we have at Brookhaven campus just a couple of weeks ago. Walter Scott Houston of the Deep Sky Wonders fame wrote that one way to improve the chance of seeing it without optical aid is to take a long cardboard tube, paint the inside of it black, and then look at it. This will oftentimes cut out the unappreciated flood of light brightness and improve your magnitude limit. Of course, M15 is easy to see in binoculars in dark, clear skies. It looks like a fuzzy star. Slide Master, slide number 17. NGC1 and NGC2. Dave Hutchins writes, and one is the Crab Nebula in Taurus, but fewer know where NGC, which stands for New General Catalog, NGC1 is located. Yes, along with NGC2, it's in Pegasus. Of the two galaxies, NGC1 is the brighter in magnitude at 12.9. NGC2 is much dimmer at magnitude 14.2. The two galaxies appear to be very close together in the sky and may be observed from the same field of view. Both of them are spiral galaxies. NGC2 is so dim that Dave Hutchinson writes that he had to use averted vision to see it, even with the 24-inch telescope at Lone Star Observatory. That's up in Atoka. Slide Master, slide number 18, please. NGC 7331. It's a spiral galaxy. It's a nice spiral galaxy, and it's shown to be a beautiful object in photographs. It is viewed obliquely, tilted about 22 degrees from edge-on. Burnham's Celestial Handbook states that NGC 7331 is a galaxy whose photograph is often used in astronomy textbooks to illustrate the probable appearance of our own Milky Way system if seen from intergalactic space. I will debate that because right now we're thinking that the Milky Way is now a barred spiral and not just a plain spiral. Despite the fact that these days we now know that the Milky Way's nucleus has a central bar. Oh, I just said that. NGC 7331 does not. Dave Hutchinson writes that in his Spectrum article that NGC 7331 is still referred to as a twin of our Milky Way by many scientists. It's part of nearby companions often called the Deerlick group. Slide Master, slide number 19. Stephan's Quintet, NGC 7317, NGC 7318A, 7318B, 7319, 7320. Stephan Quintet is a faint group of galaxies that is difficult in smaller telescopes. Dave Hutchinson notes that they were easy to see in the 24-inch Lone Star Observatory telescope. Stephen James Amir notes that radio observations show that there may be some interaction between NGC 7331 and at least one member of Stephan's Quintet. Omer also notes that Stephan's Quintet is famous for another heavenly way. It's used in the opening sequence of the well-known 1946 film, It's a Wonderful Life. Maybe we can use that as one of our Afterglow movies in the future. And this is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 20. There are a few more Astronomical League observing program objects in the constellation of Pegasus, the winged horse. I've given you just a sampling of some of those objects. The Astronomical League has, at last count, 77 different observing programs, most of which have about 100 objects. There's a couple of them that have 400 objects. If you observe just 10 different objects in an observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pen from the Astronomical League in about a year. And that is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, Pegasus the Winged Horse. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell for the research on words on deep sky objects that I've used, borrow, and steal for every Skynet. I also at times use the website constellation-guide.com for information. Now next week we have a twofer. We'll take a look at Sculptor, the Sculptor's Workshop, and Phoenix, a very special bird. And this is KF5JHA sending it back to our net control. 73, everyone. Have a great night.
Well, thank you, Chaz. Most appreciated. We really do appreciate the work you do every week putting this together. You're one regular guy besides myself who does this. You got the hard job coming in with all this. This is KE5ICX and net control for the night Skynet. I'll take additional check-ins before we move to what will probably be our last feature this evening. Does anyone else want to join us? Please come with your call sign, name, where you're transmitting from. Okay, hearing none, we're going to skip on down to recent astronomical discoveries. That would be Brenda again, WB50ZL. Miss Brenda, go ahead. What do you have for us this evening from KE5ICX?
Thanks, Tom. This is WB50ZL with an article from ScienceDaily.com entitled Milky Way-like Galaxy Found in the Early Universe. Using the James Webb Space Telescope, an international team, including astronomer Alexander de la Vega of the University of California, Riverside, has discovered the most distant barred spiral galaxy similar to the Milky Way that has been observed to date. Until now, it was believed that barred spiral galaxies like the Milky Way could not be observed before the universe, estimated to be 13.8 billion years old, reached half its current age. The research published in Nature this week was led by scientists at the Centro de Astrobiología in Spain. This galaxy, named Ceres, CEERS-2112, formed soon after the Big Bang, said co-author de la Vega, a postdoctoral researcher in the Department of Physics and Astronomy. Finding Ceres 2112 shows that galaxies in the early universe could be as ordered as the Milky Way. This is surprising because galaxies were much more chaotic in the early universe, and very few had similar structures to the Milky Way. Ceres 2112 has a bar in its center. De la Vega explained that a galactic bar is a structure made of stars within galaxies. Galactic bars resemble bars in our everyday lives, such as a candy bar. It is possible to find bars in non-spiral galaxies, he said, but they're very rare. Nearly all bars are found in spiral galaxies, said De La Vega, who joined UCR last year after receiving his doctoral degree in astronomy at Johns Hopkins University. The bar in Ceres 2112 suggests that galaxies matured and became ordered much faster than we previously thought, which means some aspects of our theories of galaxy formation and evolution need revision. Astronomers' previous understanding of galaxy evolution was that it took several billion years for galaxies to become ordered enough to develop bars. The discovery of Ceres 2112 shows that it can happen in only a fraction of that time, in about 1 billion years or less, De La Vega said. According to him, galactic bars are thought to form in spiral galaxies with stars that rotate in an ordered fashion, the way they do in the Milky Way. In such galaxies, bars can form spontaneously due to instabilities in the spiral structure or gravitational effects from the neighboring galaxies, De La Vega said. In the past, when the universe was very young, galaxies were unstable and chaotic. It was thought that bars could not form or last long in galaxies in the early universe. The discovery of Sirius 2012 is expected to change at least two aspects of astronomy. First, theoretical models of galaxy formation and evolution will need to account for some galaxies becoming stable enough to host stars very early in the universe's history, De La Vega said. These models may need to adjust how much dark matter makes up galaxies in the early universe, as dark matter is believed to affect the rate at which stars form. Second, the discovery of Sirius 2112 demonstrates that structures like bars can be detected when the universe was very young. Were smaller than they are now, which makes finding bars harder. The discovery of Sirius 2112 paves the way for more bars to be discovered in the young universe. De La Vega helped the research team by estimating the redshift and properties of Sirius 2112. He also contributed to the interpretation of the measurements. Redshift is an observable property of the galaxy that indicates how far away it is and how far back in time the galaxy is seen, which is a consequence of the finite speed of light, he said. What surprised De La Vega most about the discovery of Sirius 2112 is how well the properties of its bar could be constrained. Initially, I thought detecting and estimating properties of bars in galaxies like Sirius 2112 would be fraught with measurement uncertainties, he said. But the power of the James Webb Space Telescope and the expertise of our research team helped us place strong constraints on the size and shape of the bar. At UCR, De La Vega oversees astronomy outreach. He plans telescope nights on and off campus and visits to local schools to give presentations on astronomy. He also leads the public astronomy talk series Cosmic Thursdays, as well as one-off events for special occasions such as viewing parties or eclipses. That is it. WB50ZL.
Very good. Thank you, Brenda, for all that you do on this net. You have a number of segments, and it's most appreciated. This is KE5ICX. We're going to call it done this evening. Normally I do visible satellite packages. You can go to heavens-above.com for additional information on that. So plug in your longitude and latitude and it'll give you all of the information there. So let me do this. I'll take one final round of check-ins. If you would like to join us this evening, please come to call sign phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from. This is last call.
Oh, Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey, J, or whatever.
Maybe college football. I don't know what's on this evening, but it must be a good game. Tonight we had 17 check-ins, well, 18 check-ins, including myself. And I want to thank all those who did check in this evening. Hope you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration on this net. Sky is under the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all the DARC nets. If you'd like to try your hand at it, send a note to, and that's at w5fc.org. By the way, I forgot to mention, thank you, Tony, NT5PM, for helping me out last week when I wasn't available. I was down in Corpus, so thanks very much, and everyone else who participated and contributed to that net. You can follow topics and discussion about this net, astronomy in general, on Facebook and Twitter, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net. Until next Saturday night, this is Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray, and I'll be closing the net at, 22:29 local time, and returning the repeater to normal amateur use.
I'm completely operational, and all my circuits are functioning perfectly.
Afterglow movie net. On the Afterglow movie net. 7-3, everybody, and enjoy the evening discovering the universe. KE5ICX, clear for about 5 minutes.
Tom, K5ICX N5BB. J. Cox, KG5BZW doubled with you during the first part of your last transmission, and the repeater ID covered up the details about the Afterglow net, N5BB.
All right, thank you, Bill, and I've I've got him checked in, and we'll begin the net after talking about after movie net after the movie this evening. Thank you, Bill. We'll be back in 5. This is KE5ICS.
Kilo 5, Juliet, Delta Whiskey, clear.
I got you checked in, John. Sorry about that. K5JDW.
K5GDW inside BB. John, I saw you way back at the back of the DERC meeting, but I didn't get a chance to say hi to you in person. Howdy, inside BB. John must have turned the radio off. Inside BB clear, waiting for afterglow.
Okay, everybody, come back to the radio. It's time for the final net of the evening on this repeater, and it is the Afterglow Movie Net. This is an opportunity to see a fine motion picture specially selected for this audience of connoisseurs of fine films and others films. Sometimes not so fine, sometimes pretty terrible, sometimes god-awful. It just depends. By Ryan Smith and starring Stephen Strait, whoever that is, and Caroline Wydra, whoever the heck she is. It premiered at the 43rd Annual Nashville Film Festival on April 19, 2012. The Canadian distributor Mongrel Media acquired the North American rights to the film in June of 2013. I guess that's an important thing. So here's the plot. It is, in 2012, Anna, a failed writer who works as a nurse, meets Freddie, an inspiring comic book artist, on a bus. So Anna brushes him off. Freddie persists in conversation. The two are surprised to find that they live on the same street in a small town. But before they can talk any further, the bus is involved in an apparent crash. We couldn't afford the crash sequence, so we just go to dark. And then Anna wakes up in her bed, late for work. When she arrives at the hospital, it seems deserted, though she finds a mysterious, barely intelligible audio recording. Although the town initially seems empty, loud music draws her to Freddie's house. After comparing experiences, the two set off to explore the town. At the police station, they find all communication channels, including radio transmitters, are down. As they explore the town's limits, they discover a dark wall of fog encircles the town and is slowly encroaching. Unwilling to drive through it, they retreat to the center of town, where they discover it has suddenly reverted to 1992 as Freddie unsuccessfully attempts to get the attention of passers-by. Anna observes a younger version of herself interact with her Aunt Blue. After they apparently shift back to 2012, Freddie estimates they have 3 days until the fog engulfs them. The two discuss theories, including whether they have died in the bus crash. Remembering the recording at the hospital, Anna shows it to Freddie. They are surprised to hear a real-time conversation in which doctors discussing cutting off life support for Anna in 3 days, as she's been in a coma for 2 months. Anna explains that after Aunt's protracted coma and eventual death, she signed a living will. Freddie suggests that the fog represents Anna's impending death, and the two reluctantly enter the fog to find answers. They find locked doors, thousands of keys, and a chain. They flee back to town, where they hear monstrous growling. A chained monster chases them. As they gather supplies, Freddie experiences a memory of his stepfather, who attempts to bond with him after Freddie gets in trouble at school. Anna describes a play she wrote about a monster similar to the one that chased them, and Freddie shows her a comic book that he made. The ends with a locked door and thousands of keys. Convinced that their experiences and memories are being brought to life, the two go to a fairground where they both visited on the same day in 1992. There they observe a brief meeting between their younger selves. Convinced that they must face the monster, they set a trap that only frees the monster from its chains. Freddie and Anna hole up in a church. When Anna suddenly becomes ill, Freddie leaves to confront the monster by himself. Anna is horrified to see him dragged off, and she retreats to her childhood house. There she experiences a memory in which she performs a play for Aunt Blue. During the play's climax, Freddie's friends coerce him to petty vandalism that results in an accidental fire and Aunt Blue's coma. Back in 2012, a bruised and battered Freddie appears and apologizes before sinking into unconsciousness. When the monster appears, Anna kills it and takes the crucial key from the corpse. She drags Freddie to the door inside the fog, and when the key opens it, she pulls him across the threshold so that they escape together. In the hospital, Anna wakes up and rushes to find Freddie, whom she learns has already been released. His caretaker explains that Freddie has partial amnesia and remembers little except the crash itself. Using his sketchbook and an emotional embrace, Anna helps him to remember their shared experiences. The end. Now, you can call that a movie or not, I don't know. You can call that a story or not, I'm not sure. But in any case, it's time to check everyone in, and this is how we're going to do it. I will take your call sign, phonetically please, your name. And did you see tonight's movie After from 2012? Let us begin, please. Please check in.
Someone always has to go first. NT5TM, Tony in Dallas. I saw a little bit of it and got very bored.
So Golf 5, Bravo, Zulu, Whiskey, Jade, near Ledford. I saw the film.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo. Bill and Irving. Yes, I saw the film.
Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brenda in Dallas. I saw the whole stinking thing.
November, Victor 5, Foxtrot, Virginia in Fort Worth. I did not see the film.
Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, Sean in Fort Worth. Yes, I've seen this film.
All right, I think the usual suspects have checked in. I've got Tony, NT5TM in Dallas. He saw some of the film, KG5, BZW, J near Weatherford. Yes, he saw the film. N5BB, Bill and Irving. Yes, he saw the movie. WB5OZL, Brenda in Dallas. Yes, she saw the whole stinking film. NV5F, Virginia in Fort Worth. No, she did not see the film. She had guessed, and we're building maniacal monster robots, so we're going to have to ask her if she would like to see the movie at some time. And I'll come back to you and ask you relentless questions about what you think, whether you should see the film or not. And then KB5, SOK, that's Sean in Fort Worth. Yes, he saw the film. Anyone else want to check in? Okay, we're going to go ahead and start at the top. Lucky Tony, since he bravely stepped forward as Spartacus. Spartacus, what did you think of the plot of our fine film this evening, After from 2012, this version of After?
Well, I am Agador, Spartacus, Agador. You know, I did watch about a third of the movie up until their first encounter with the big fog, and I found a lot of things about the plot to be annoyed by. I wanted to go back and watch the day after contact using the police walkie-talkies, but it didn't work. Oopsie. And it also seemed kind of confusing about whether the utility power was on or off. I found it really hard to believe that she could have gone to the hospital and not noticed that the road was empty and there was nobody there. Did the elevators work? They weren't really clear about that. I could not tell if the utility power was on or off. And I did get the impression that this was some sort of a dream world, so consistency was not entirely required, but I guess my dreams are boringly consistent. You know, when I get on the radio and say this is Lawrence, Kansas, calling anyone at all, I expect to get either silence or somebody not, there's no evidence, there's at all. So I just found it, I don't know, overly inconsistent. Yes, I know it was supposed to be some sort of dream and the two main characters are already dead or comatose or something like that. But I didn't get very engaged and I found it distractingly inconsistent and worse than that, overly gritty. I had trouble telling if it was day or night. I don't like movies like that. I'm tired of color casts being used as a substitute for substance. I guess I'm going to call this my Dunkirk rule, because the movie Dunkirk is not perfect, but I love the fact that the big horrible battle was taking place on a beautiful day. Because battles often do. I mean, sometimes generals deliberately plan battles to happen in bad weather, like in the Battle of the Bulge. Okay, I've watched Patton. But so often, bad things happen on good days. It doesn't have to be greenish, or bluish, or purple. You don't have to wonder if the porch lights are on by accident or on purpose. The real world is just not like that. It doesn't have a big color cast everywhere. And I'm tired of that. It makes NT5TM wishing all color casts could be abolished.
Well, Tony, your responses through the years to just about everything I've ever spoken with you about or watched, observed, have always been measured responses. This is the closest I've ever heard you make a rant, which is, for a normal person, is probably about a 2.5. For you, it's about a 13. So I'm quite impressed that this movie brought your air out. That's wonderful. And by the way, thank you for the reference to The Birdcage, one of my favorite films. Even though nobody else caught it, but I did. Very good. Let's see, Jay, KG5BZW. Jay, it's your turn. What did you think about the plot of tonight's movie after the 2012 version from KE5ICX?
This is KG5BZW. Well, okay. First off, I didn't hate the film. As far as consistency, well, I mean, it's a fantasy. Come on. I will agree. They were pretty inconsistent on the power, going out. My assumption is that, as the ring closed, certain things are supposed to not, maybe be cut off, run to power or something. I don't think they executed that too well, but that's not my biggest thing. And just to disagree with Tony, I mean, there are places where in summer it's not really summer. It's you got the sun kind of almost. It's like sun. Not that this was anywhere near the North Pole or anything. So to me, I didn't mind the fact that you didn't really know the day. That was night or day, because I actually don't think that was required. That I didn't have too much problem with that. What I do think should have happened was the first 5 minutes they could cut through that. That was awkward as heck. That was very awkward. I know it was supposed. It kind of was supposed to be, but. Still, it didn't have to be that long. And then the ending was just too sappy with that kiss. It's like, why did they have a kiss? I don't know. It wasn't. Yeah, they experienced something to get together. It just sounds more Stockholm syndrome than anything. Other than those things, I didn't really hate the ideas. I do think it could have been a little bit better executed. I was really happy that they didn't, because it looked like they had painted themselves in that corner with when the guy of the two people that were in the alternate world, whatever, got taken away by the monster. It turned out it was a little bit better. I was totally expecting them to do that, some sort. Yeah, it kind of was still probably that, but now I've already forgotten. But whatever it was, it didn't seem like it did. Anything, it was after when the whole. Oh yeah, that's right. That's when we learned that this other thing that was totally accidental caused a lot of trouble, and I don't know. I could get a little rambly here. You kind of learn, which I always suspected, that the monster was kind of metaphorical for the trauma of the past. The introduction of the key through the monster's corpse, that was kind of silly, but whatever. I kind of knew that they were going to have, each person's going to be the key to the other person getting out. So, it's kind of a similar trope, but there's probably better execution of that. I'm going to reset just because I don't know how long this will. I've been talking and I don't know if it's going. The radio was just, stopped. Other than that, I'm happy to have a not terrible film, and besides the monster, the pre-roll credits was probably the other big money allocation for the film, because I thought that was actually well done. But I don't know if the monster was well done. I know I'm giving it to her second and third round here. I'm more like I haven't really. Anyway, other than that, it's a film. I'm just kind of glad we didn't have random monsters. Random monsters. Well, we did have a random monster, but it's not like, I tried watching last week, and where the hell were they going, and then all of a sudden monsters show up, and just every second of that, and I just no, I'm not going to watch the film. I didn't watch this film because it wasn't terrible. Anyway, that didn't make sense. Sorry. KG5BCW, I hand it back next door.
All right, thank you, Jay. I think I know where you're going with it. I get it. But you're right. We didn't have a not terrible film, which is kind of nice for a change. Okay, next up is Bill, N5BB. Bill, what say you about our fine film this evening from KE5ICX?
Hi, Tom. This is N5BB. Well, I wanted to like this film. Okay? I wanted to like it. as what looked like kind of a small little production initially. I mean, it had, only 2 real actors through the whole film and a few other fill-in things. And it seemed like it was probably filmed on a moderately low budget. But like some other movies we've seen, it looked to me like a plot by committee. What I mean is, you take a fishbowl, you take a big jar, and people just start writing plot little points, and they dump them in the jar. And then somebody stirs them up, and they start pulling them out, and they say, have we finished the movie yet? No. Okay, let's pull another plot point out. Let's try that. No, let's put another one out. And it's like they just keep pulling them out until they fill the movie. And then they kind of edit it to move everything around so they're not just all in one place. But that's what I thought. It's just crazy. So you tell me, at the end of the movie, what is it really? Here are the choices. It's an alternative universe movie. He even mentioned that at one point in the movie. It's an alternate universe movie. Number 2, it's time travel. Sure, like part of it was time travel to me. And in fact, when they first woke up, she had hairy armpits and he had hair on his face that wasn't there. That would look like time travel. And then other places in the movie, there was time travel back to when they were kids. It's a time travel movie. It's a dream sequence movie. They were laying there in bed and dreaming all this while they were in the hospital. Some parts of the movie seem to make it seem like that. The weird part when they were in the hospital and they changed their breathing rate or their pulse rate and the machine changed, I didn't understand that. That made no sense at all. But it was like they were really laying there in the bed and the machine, which they could see and they couldn't see their bodies, was responding. Totally senseless. But that would be a dream sequence kind of thing. Maybe they were really dead. For a while, they even talked, they suggested that to each other. Were they really dead? And everything that happened later, did they die in the accident? Everything that happened was just some kind of what goes on after death? Who knows? And then, is it really a monster fight movie? Was it really about the monster in some kind of alternative, weird monster thing, which may or may not have been something tied in with a comic book, or may have been tied in with a fight the girl had when she was young with her aunt? None of this was explained. They just kept throwing these things out. So some plot points I want to mention, again, quickly, are the hair issue, the hair growing after the thing. They thought that was important to throw that in there. Big deal. The bump at the carnival, they acted like that was a big deal. They didn't explain it. I mean, big deal. What did it do? The girl that fought with her aunt about things, why would that lead to the monster later? The monster wasn't explained. The comic book images, why would that explain all the weird stuff when they went through the smoky ridge and out into the smoke thing and into the other area? Why was all that stuff there from his comic book? Why? That wasn't explained. The fact that he threw a rock and it broke the window and it set off the fire in the house. Why would that set all these things off? I mean, big deal. The key. They made a big deal about the key. This is N5BB. To get into that locked, weird, dark chamber. As Tony mentioned, why change the lighting so stupidly? By the way, when they're in that dark chamber thing, why isn't it pitch black? Where's the light coming from? Who knows? Dream sequence, maybe. What's this key thing? What are all the keys on the floor? What's the other key they find in the monster and pull out? What's the deal with that? Well, who knows? What's this wall of smoky things that's slowly encroaching on them? You remember, I think we've seen other movies with the plane that was trying to stay ahead of time ending behind them, and they were trying to stay ahead of that. And there's been other movies about, like Twilight Zone things, people caught in a place they can't leave. To me, they stole that from other movies. Anyway, plot by committee. They kept throwing the plots in a jar and kept on pulling them out and dumping them in there, thinking adding a bunch of plots would make a movie. I'm very confused about the plot, Tom. N5BB, thank you.
Very good, Tony. I'm sorry, Bill. And Tony, that's how you do an appropriate rant. Bill is doing everything, including shaking his fist in the air, demanding justice. So his is more like, well, even for Bill, that's somewhat, he's still more reserved than the average person in this regard. So I'm going to give him a 7 on the rant scale to your 2. We have yet to find the super emotional, why did you make me watch this film? That could be Brenda. She's next. WB5OZL. Brenda, what did you think about our plot to this fine film we watched After from 2012?
This is WB5OZL. I want to talk about Wizard of Mars. I haven't cascaded you enough yet for that movie. I was severely damaged by it, and I am very fragile anyway. And you didn't watch it, so you're going to have to watch it, and then we're going to discuss it. Okay, there was something I really liked about this movie. You know, I'm always complaining that I can't tell characters apart. You know, have half a dozen guys on a spaceship, and maybe 2 of them I can distinguish from the others. They all seem to be alike, or they're just not distinctive enough. In this movie, I had no trouble identifying the characters, because it was just the guy and the girl and the monster, and none resembled each other. And so this is kind of refreshing to be able to not have to puzzle over who is that talking. So I'll say that. That's a good point about this movie. I didn't hate it. You know, when you have one name that shows up doing everything that usually is a bad sign to somebody's vision, their labor of love, and it's probably their first project. And so while they put a lot of passion into it, they haven't matured into making something that's professional. You know, the guy didn't do a really bad job, and he didn't do a good job either. Now, the acting was okay, I guess, but the plot was very confusing, muddled, and so much unexplained stuff happens in this movie. You know, why? Why is this happening? Why is this? You know, there's never an attempt to understand what exactly is happening and why it is happening. So you're just going to make up your own answers or just shrug it off. Okay, back to WB5OZL.
All right, thank you, Brenda. And yes, you make good points. Okay, I'm going to skip over Virginia, but I'm coming back to you in just a few minutes. KB5SOK, Sean, your thoughts on the plot for tonight's movie After from 2012. This is KB5IC.
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Well, I'll say it was definitely better than last week's. Kind of like Brenda, I didn't hate this film. I do agree with many people that it was kind of slow-moving. But this, I didn't look it up. I'm guessing this is a fairly low budget. So I'm guessing that, they could probably afford so much action. I think they spent most of it on the monster and the CG that they had. But I think it's one of the reasons why they kept it so dark was to help cover up what lack of money they could really throw at this thing. But I agree, it gets old, all these dark scenes all the time. Now, as far as the plot goes, I really didn't find it as confusing as some, apparently. To me, it seemed pretty predictable through most of the movie. To me, it was pretty clear that after this accident, obviously the young lady was in a coma. And once again, yeah, this is kind of one of those, though, fantasy kind of stories. But apparently because they both were maybe initially thrown into a coma at the same time, their minds got linked in some way. As the guy was dreaming about the same thing that she was seeing in her coma. And that's really what, to me, this was all about, was about being in that coma, and somehow their mind being linked, and her fighting to come back out of that coma. As we know, there's still not a lot known what really goes on in a person's mind while they're in a coma. And they did make mention in the movie, when you could hear the recordings, that, she had way above average brain activity for somebody who was in a coma. So they were quite mystified by that, and obviously that was part of her link with the other guy in this film. So as far as that goes, I think that was pretty easy to understand. Yeah, why were their minds linked? Yeah, of course they're not going to explain that. They don't have a reason for that. Once again, it's just kind of one of those fantasy things you just got to take it, what it is, So really, I thought that part was okay. I do feel that it was a little slow-moving. I did find it somewhat interesting that, they both had similar aspirations. He wanted to write comic books, she wanted to write plays, and so that was kind of their link. And I think that's why they kind of showed the carnival, just showing that they did live in the same town, they knew each other before, and apparently tragic things happened to them on that same day. Obviously, the one part they didn't really explain is kind of when the guy changed his ways, because obviously they made it very clear he was not a good kid. He was always getting into trouble, what have you. Obviously, they showed that, the girl was obviously in a lot of pain. She thought she killed her aunt, when in reality it was really the boy that killed her aunt by throwing the rock through the window, even though that was not his intention. And to me, this is where I felt the plot bothered me the most, was, this poor girl was tortured for all these years that she killed her aunt, and in reality it was the boy. He did that, and as she was telling him the story, he acted like he had no clue who she was or what had happened. But clearly he knew what happened. He remembers. I'm sure how would you forget, killing somebody? I mean, that was the part that kind of bothered me. Why didn't he come clean to her earlier when she started, confessing her guilt about, her killing her aunt? At that point, he should have stepped up and told her, no, it was him that threw the rock through that window. And I think that was part of the story of her coming to that realization that it wasn't her. But then the other part I thought was really strange was how easily that she instantly forgave him for that, because she, I guess, fallen in love with him during this process. But it's just strange that she was like 100% okay with it. This movie is all about showing how their life was somewhat linked in the past, and that's maybe, since they shared this experience, that's why they were linked again. So in reality, I thought it was a pretty simple plot, really. As we talked about the clouds, it was just her time running out before, she had to get out of this coma before they pulled the plug. So I didn't really find it too confusing. I just did find it kind of slow-paced. There was just a lot of dialogue, which can be good, and a little bit of it was okay. I did find parts of it somewhat interesting, but then a lot of it was just kind of, cliche, and Bill's right, there are definitely some cliches in this that they stole from other movies for sure. How many times have we seen where the beast was killed because the beast fell on top of the person and the sword goes through them, the same as it did with Steak. She didn't technically kill it, killed herself. So, that's been used so many times before, and there was some of this in here. And that's why I kind of felt part of this movie was kind of predictable. But all in all, it wasn't horrible, but it wasn't great either. But at least it was it was watchable. I stayed awake during this. I didn't have to fight it, so it was okay. I don't know that I would recommend it, but hey, as far as some of the stuff we've seen lately. But anyway, back to that. KV9, that's okay.
All right, thank you, Sean. Okay, a more even-handed review and likability with a lot of retreads as far as storyline. Okay, let me ask if there's additional check-ins before we do the next thing here. Anyone else want to join us this evening? Please come with your call sign, your name, and did you see tonight's movie After from 2012?
Delta 5, Baker Papa X-ray.
Okay, I got one over on Echolink. That's KD5BPX. That is Bobby over in Wills Point. Welcome, Bobby. Did you get a chance to see our fine film this evening? And if the answer is yes, tell us about the plot, why you liked it or hated it or whatever. Please go ahead.
Actually, I didn't get to watch that one. This was just kind of a late check-in because I got tied up and time flew by and I kind of missed checking in earlier.
Well, that's okay. We're glad you checked in. By the way, your audio is very good over on Echolink, some of the best I've ever heard. So whatever you did to check in and however you got your computer set up, it is very good for Echolink. So I'll have you checked in, and we hope you will join us again on the next net with comments if you get a chance to see the film. Okay, I'm going to give my comments then, and then I'm going to turn back to Virginia and ask her the dreaded question, which is, of course, would you watch this movie knowing what you know now? But first, I want to make my comment. So here's the thing. There was a little bit of an epiphany for me in watching this film, and it dawned on me a fundamental requirement for the classic series Twilight Zone. And maybe it's obvious to all of you, and it should be, but it's the narration at the very beginning. It is, Twilight Zone is between light and darkness, between the gray. And it has to do with good and evil and how it sometimes plays out in one or the other. We have an antagonist in one episode, we have a protagonist in another episode, and somehow they turn out. Usually the antagonist ends up having something terrible or ironic or twist happen at the very end. The protagonist ends up being vindicated or elevated or otherwise appreciated for his or her actions. But the thing about it is and this is very true with this story that we watched, is that you have to suspend a certain amount of factual belief, which opens up, in the case of the Twilight Zone, a lot of storytelling. You don't have to explain anything. You don't have to explain why the plane went back in time. That's not the point. The point is what happened to the characters in the process and how the story played out. And of course, as is true with any Twilight Zone, there's always some sort of a twist, ironic ending. Nearly always, if not every time. And that's what we're looking for, those things. How does the character act and react in extraordinary circumstances? And what is the twist going to be? And that, to me, was quite interesting. As a person who likes, say, and probably all of you, like science fiction, maybe you enjoy science fantasy as well. I'm not a huge fan of science fantasy, or fantasy, I should say, because it doesn't follow science. It doesn't take and try and build something coherent and relatable to me. And so I'll watch fantasy films, but I rarely engage in them. I rarely watch them again. I just don't find them very intriguing. Other people do. Like, for me, I'm not a fan of Lord of the Rings. I know I'm sacrilege on something like that, but I'm not. I'll take a real history over something that's been in fantasy, or Game of Thrones is another example. Anytime you add magic, I kind of just get turned off because, geez, that doesn't make it interesting. If the characters, though, make it work, then maybe I'll watch it, but very rarely. And Star Wars skirts, or at least the movie versions, skirt on magic, and I sometimes get turned off by that. So with that long preamble, knowing that Rod Serling is going to come out and tell me I'm going to watch something extraordinary, and with those two factoids being in place, I'll watch those episodes and enjoy them. But with this, we don't have Rod Serling. Yet it's really a Twilight Zone type story. An ineptly told one, in the sense that, do I really care about what's going on? The characters are okay. The dialogue and the exposition is not enough for me to really care about them. I think the love interest would have been, in this case, the interaction between the two and thrust into the extraordinary. Had it been done or directed or written by, say, Rod Serling, would have had much better dialogue that would have provided me with a caring factor. Much like The Doll Maker, I think, which was what was that? Amazing Stories, which does something similar. Two people meet up and end up building or making each other's dolls and looking for that person in real life. And it was a really poignant story with two people you really cared about that finally get together. In this case, I didn't feel that. It didn't have any of that chemistry. There was a little bit here and there, but in the end, they're just being chased by a dog on a chain or something, whatever that thing was. The poodle gone crazy. But as Bill mentioned, and others too, is that yes, it comes out of their mind, but there's no real sense of purpose or destiny in the end. Maybe if the story had come out and really pushed the love interest beyond just the simplistic getting to know each other stuff, it would have worked. That would have made the story work, but it never got to that point. So it just, everything was window dressing. We've seen all the plot things before, the town that's disappearing or being swallowed up. We've seen the mystical fog. We've seen the deserted town. All this has been done before. The Langoliers, I think it was, had something like that. The setup is always intriguing. I always like the idea of the empty town and what does that really mean and what happened, and that's a great story trap. But to pull it off, you have to do a pretty darn bang-up job to make it work, because usually the methodologies, the reasons for it are so absurd or so underwhelming that it doesn't make any sense. I'm trying to remember the Twilight Zone episode where the guy is all alone. In fact, I think it was one of the first ones, and it turns out it's he's in the dream. He's by himself in isolation as an astronaut on an extended test to see if he could stand being alone. And that one made some sense, and it offered an irony. This one did not. Okay, well, that's my ranting and raving on all of that. Oh, you know what? I forgot. Bobby had not seen it, so I'm sorry. Let me go back to Virginia. All right, Virginia, here it comes. The question that I'm going to ask you on this first round. You've heard about the plot and the storyline. What do you think? Is this a film that you would watch? NV5F from KE5ICX.
KE5ICX in the net. This is NV5F trying to stay awake. I'd probably have to go back and read the plot summary again. But based on all the ranting that's going on, and by the way, congratulations, Tony, on your rant. I, being a consummate ranter, always like to hear other people ranting because that basically validates me. But I don't know. I'm not a big fantasy fan. Characters have to be really good. I did like the first Lord of the Rings movie. I've seen the other two a couple of times, but the first one's very good. It's very compelling. That's a whole other aside. I am always more of a real science fiction fan where it's like, can this kind of happen, or is there some, cool science behind it? Fantasy. And the big turn-off word for me in this story is monster. Whenever you throw a monster in there, it's just because they didn't have an antagonist that was good enough, so we've got to put a monster in there. And I always think monsters are cheesy or scary for the sake of being scary, and it sounds like this is just one more crummy 21st century nihilistic thing. And as far as Tony's rant on color casting, I'm going to blame The Matrix. A couple other 90s movies did the same thing. Weird stuff that no one remembers, like Single White Female, and a couple other movies I remember seeing in the 90s where everything was all blue or green or yellow or whatever. But I'm going to blame The Matrix for all the color casting nonsense that we're suffering through now. The nauseous, bilious, greenish yellow. Blech, I hate that stuff too, Tony. I'm with you on that. It hides the fact that people suck at actual mise-en-scène and color keying and good cinematography. And now they can just use a computer to make it all whatever color they want. So now I'm getting into film theory. Anyways, so I'm saying not inclined to go watch this on my own. I do like a good twist and some good character stuff, and a love story. But I don't know. You said monster, and I'm kind of out. So that's my short version. NV5F.
Thank you, Virginia. You have chosen wisely. Okay, Bobby, I'm going to ask you the same question on the next round here in a little bit, so hang in there. I am going to the top of the list. It is now time to discuss the characterization. This should be interesting, as we have two principal characters, and do they mean anything to any of us? I think I already know the answer to that question, but I'm going to ask Tony first. Tony, what do you think? Do our two protagonists really seem like people we want to save, or do we want them to not get through the locked door with their Amway products? Please tell us from KE5ICX.
This is Lawrence, Kansas, calling anyone at all. Lawrence, Kansas, can you hear me? So, I was pretty happy that there was at least a brief radio bit in the movie. I'm always glad to see radio as a character. They didn't do it nearly as well as in The Day After, but at least they tried, even if they didn't know what the radio did. And as several other people have noted, they could tell the characters apart. And in the third of the movie I watched, yes, I did not confuse them at all. Yay! That's a good thing. A lot of these low-budget movies don't actually achieve that. But the question is, being able to tell them apart and being able to compare them to other movies, did I care? No, not really. I'm kind of sad I didn't stick it out long enough to watch the movie and see the monster. Maybe the monster was like really pretty or strange or ghastly. That could have been an interesting character. But no, not overly worried about the characters. C'est la vie. NT5TM.
Well, thank you, Tony. And, that was a short response from you. Just keep in mind the cast were only 6 characters. So 4 of them were Anna and Freddie, and technically they were younger versions, so maybe, telling them apart wasn't as important, although Freddie is going to be a younger man and Anna's going to be a younger girl, or boy and girl. So I don't know. At any rate, yes. There you have it. Okay, next is Jay, KG5BZW. Jay, what'd you think of our characterization, our acting in our fine film this evening from KE5ICX?
KG5BZW. Well. Sorry to disappoint. It wasn't. The monster wasn't terribly. Let me put it this way. It was a humanoid with lots of gnarly teeth. I actually just. I don't know what the name of the trope is, but it seems to be coming this it was a lot better than a costume or whatever. It was still computer graphics, but it I was just viewing on Instagram or with Facebook or something, and one of my Facebook friends had a costume, and was like, "Oh, that head looks like the head of the monster." So yeah, I mean, for a cheap production, it actually wasn't bad. But it wasn't. We aren't talking Cthulhu-esque or anything. It's just a crazy monster, which is, I figured, as the reification of. I don't even care about the characters' names, but then, to be honest, a lot of times I don't anyway. Whoever the gal was, her self-blame, I figured it's just the reification in terms of the dream world of her self-blame. And so, I was like, yeah, sure. It's a trope that's been done before. I can't remember where or when I've seen it, but it's been done before. And honestly, it's probably about as, I don't know if it's been, it's not the great nothing of the never-ending story. But then that's not really even a monster. That's just, that's another thing entirely. That's a cool monster. There's okay, in terms, because the great nothing, and then they had a gnarly creature that was kind of, oh gosh, I'm wanting to watch the Never-Ending Story now because I'm thinking about this stuff. It kind of like, because the Great Nothing is I know I'm getting off topic, but I want to finish this thought out. They had to have a character that you could actually interact with, because the Great Nothing that just swallowed everything up. Well, you can't humanly interact with that, but they did add a character to do that, unless I'm confusing another film. This was not that quality. This was not that good. This was not really that good. Okay, besides that, oh gosh, so the first part where they introduced the characters, and yes, I know they're both kind of hermits and all that. They have to set that up, so it is going to be a little bit awkward and all that. But why do they have to have that heartbeat at the front? That's just 5 minutes of, okay, this is going to be a really stressful situation. But there was nothing really stressful except for the one thing where it's like, what the heck caused that book to drop or whatever? It made, that was I guess a misdirect. Not misdirect so much as a, what would you call it? No, a misdirect. It was intention. I don't know word. Maybe it's something that you put in that misdirects the audience essentially, just because whatever. Which sometimes it can be good or whatever. But okay, I'm not explaining myself well because Mario Andrew there. And then there's the middle section, which, you know, we get to learn about the kids, them as kids, and all that. It's like, oh, okay, that's kind of interesting. And the whole, oops, the kid caused the accidentally, I wouldn't say cause, it because it was more of a chain reaction thing, a domino effect of A hits B, B hits C. It really was, literally is a domino effect and not a direct cause, but, anyway, and then the end where it's like, I've already complained about, like, there's no real reason for that last kiss. They did not explain that well at all. I wish they could have gone a little bit more in depth to him on what the guy experienced when, and we see the coma through her eyes, it seems. Now, whether, you know, like, were they actually, you know, really in a dream world that kind of connected them and blah, blah, blah. I mean, this is a fantasy element, and that's what this film is. It's not, let's be honest, this thing is fantasy, it's not sci-fi. Which, I don't hate fantasy or anything. I actually like some of those types of things, films, stories. But anyway, I don't know what else to say, because in the end, again, what do you care about these characters? Yeah, a little bit. I do care a little bit, but and it has to end just kind of why. It's not. It's the Hollywood ending kind of thing, just forced upon us, because I don't know. That's just what it was. Anyway, thank you, Bobby.
Okay, thank you, Jay. Next up is Bill, N5BB. Bill, what did you think of our characterization, our acting as well, for our fine film, After, from 2012? This is KE5ICX.
This is N5BB. Well, as far as the two main characters, I think their acting was okay. I hated the script, I thought their acting was okay. I believed them, but I didn't believe the script. Some of the other acting was kind of odd. The girl's aunt, that was awfully saccharine. It was maybe that was her memory. That was the way she remembered it. But it seemed like it was just a little bit too sticky and sweet to me. The guy's father, that was probably okay, that acting. Of course, there were a lot of other actors that didn't get interacted with, and I don't know how to view that acting. You know, when you have some characters and that don't think that that other people are interacting with them like they're invisible, why don't they just stand in front of somebody else or hit them? They didn't. And the one time that I think the woman tried to touch somebody, it all disappeared like it was a dream sequence. So I don't know. That the acting is part of these flashback time things. I didn't understand, I guess. I didn't understand how that characterization was done. I don't know if it's a plot point or how it was. It's kind of how it was directed. N5BB. The other major characters were the wall of dirt that kept enclosing in on the town, and I don't know. I thought that was stupid acting. I'm calling it acting. And the last actor is the worst one. And so Virginia, not only was there a monster, but it was horrible monster acting. It was horrible. It just made no sense. It was chained up, but the chain was miles long. What? It was chained up outside of our universe, but it somehow got into our universe. It didn't make any sense at all. It was just, and it wasn't even a fantastical creature. It was just stupid, if you ask me. Like a 1950s creature. So I thought the acting with respect to the monster was horrible. Characterizations, I guess. I thought that the characterizations of the relationship between the two characters was going reasonably. And then at the end, it's like he had amnesia, and she was trying to be lovey-dovey with him at the very end, and I thought they blew it. I just thought they screwed their whole relationship up in the last 2 minutes of the film. I thought that was all. Why did they have to do that? They could have made it end a lot better. They could have made it end a lot better. That's what I thought. So I didn't like that characterization. I guess that's it. I'm shaking my fist at the sky, Tony. I'm actually shaking my fist at the wall of smoke that's getting ready to engulf us. I'm shaking my fist at it. N5BB.
This is great. I love it. This movie has actually got people upset. Well, or upset with indifference, and why is it indifference? Why couldn't it have been better than bad? Because that's what you're all saying. Okay, Brenda, WB50ZL. Brenda, your thoughts on characterization and the fine acting in this film. Did the fog really push the envelope of acting? Should it have gotten an Academy Award nomination in 2012? You tell us from KE5ICX.
This is WB50ZL. You know, I'm not all that upset over it. It was really, I wouldn't say it's boring. I just think it was not distinguished. And the acting was okay. They were good actors, but you know, it just doesn't stand out to me. I just kind of don't have much of an opinion about their acting or their characterization. They didn't have a whole lot to work with. I think the worst thing is the muddled story. You couldn't understand it. And so maybe that's why everybody's so mad. I don't know. I thought Wizard of Oz a really horrible movie. I'm sticking to that. This movie was boring. I'm sorry. It was frustrating because you couldn't understand it, and they couldn't understand what was going on. So And they didn't even try to explain what was happening. So that's where the frustration is. It's like, just tell us what's going on and explain it. But they wouldn't do that. Back to that, WB50ZL.
All right, thank you, Brenda. And now I'm going to skip Virginia this time, but I am going to talk to Bobby here in a minute. We're going to Sean, KB5SOK. Sean, your thoughts on characterization, the acting in our fine film for tonight from KE5ICS.
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Well, the acting, it wasn't horrible. I think the young lady did a reasonable job. I think her acting was decent. I do feel that the male in this was a little below average in the acting area. I feel his character's a little off. I wasn't 100% happy with the way he portrayed this. Most of that could have just been writing, but it just seemed off a little bit. I think the aunt was fine. I think she was just, obviously, it was clear that the aunt was very sick, but yet she still wanted to spend quality time, with her niece. So she was willing to play along. So I think that was fine. The bullies that, or the friends of the boy when he was younger, they seemed like they were probably the kind of friends that would probably get you to do things you shouldn't be doing. So yeah, the acting was just okay on this, for people I've never seen before or haven't seen since. So I wasn't too upset with that. The characterizations was, once again, to me, I mean, it seems like a lot of people are confused. I didn't really find the movie so much confusing, other than, yes, I agree, there's a few twists in there, like the boy being the one that actually caused the aunt to die. That was a twist I didn't see coming. So there was a few twists in there that were okay, but it was just kind of dull. I think Tom nailed it. This was more like a Twilight episode. Had they reduced this down to 45 minutes, sped things up, I think this could have been much better. And I do agree. I do think that the whole love plot was thin. I think maybe had they gone back and showed their past, and maybe they never did officially meet, but maybe throughout the years, maybe they did have linked dreams, and they were creating stories together and didn't even realize it. And maybe if they come to that realization, then maybe that love story would have made much more sense. And had we seen maybe what happened after, maybe they went on to actually write a good story together, later on become famous. So I think there was a potential there to make that make a lot more sense. Bill's right, it was strange. We went from the girl not really caring for the guy to, a few minutes later, after they get out, all at once she seems to be all lovey-dovey with him. She did a complete kind of a 180. Not that I don't think she hated him, but she just didn't care for him until that last minute. It's like they kind of skipped over part of the story there. So that was a little weird. I found the whole love story a little off, and really, in some ways, I think that was supposed to be part of this. Was their minds, being linked, and had it showed a lifetime of that, and put a little more, I think it would have been much better. And maybe originally the movie was supposed to be longer, and they just started cutting it in places. But once again, I didn't hate this movie. I felt it was just okay. Like I said, I don't know that I'd recommend it. But it was watchable compared to last week's movie. That was pretty much unwatchable, but we watched it anyway. So yeah. So yes, Virginia, you made the wiser choice by building powerful robots to take over the world one day. That was probably much more fun than watching this movie. I just wonder why you didn't invite the rest of us. That sounds like fun. But anyway, back to that KB9SOK.
Yeah, thank you, Sean. And that got me thinking, too, and it is kind of my turn now, is that, if they had strengthened the relationship between the two of them, maybe had created that relationship at the very beginning, and that they were actually maybe coming home together from a trip, and that they had a good time, and they were falling in love, and they were going to get married, and all of that. and then they go into this coma thing, and somehow or another they find out, they reveal that Freddy kind of ended up, was the cause of Aunt Lou's death or something like that. Maybe that would have worked better, and that the forces that be are going to take him to hell. I don't know. Even that's kind of corny, but it maybe would provide a better platform for transformation. Your characters are supposed to have something transformative and something that happens to elevate them to a newer level, and I didn't get a lot of that. I know that it changed from two characters that didn't know each other, but again did, and didn't realize it, to characters that didn't like each other, and then eventually did like each other. And it just, the transformation was not credible in my book. Here's something that I'm reading here on the reception over on the Wikipedia. It says from a guy, from a magazine or an online site called Dread Central, gave it 2 out of 5 stars. And the guy says, far too saccharine for its own good. After is an exercise in boredom that just can't be saved by the presence of a nifty monster, nor an impressively inventive take on the dead coma present. So he's giving you kind of like, okay, this had some elements that were intriguing and interesting, and I think we all agreed the story started out that way, but the payoff was nothing, which is another typical result of these things. You set up a wonderful premise, and then it just falls apart at the end. Oh well. Acting-wise, I didn't mind the characters so much, although many people didn't like Aunt Lou. I actually kind of liked her. She was the only likable character in the whole thing. Maybe the kids, the little tykes were okay, but that was it. I want to know what happened to the bus driver. What happened to the bus driver? What was he doing? Was he in a coma too? Did he just drive, and what did he do? Did he drive off the road? We didn't have any money for the special effects, but why couldn't we put the bus driver on trial in hell or something? Now that would have been cool. What were you doing on the night of the 23rd, and why were you not keeping your eyes on the road? And why were there only 2 people on the bus? Don't you know you can't make any money with only 2 people on the bus? And why did you let them sit next to each other? You shouldn't have. You should have put them in the front and the back of the bus and told them that they're not allowed to talk to each other because bad things would happen. Or maybe he was distracted by this stupid dialogue between the two and decided to end it all because these 2 people were boring and it was another 2 hours to the town. That's probably what happened. These people caused their own potential comas and potential deaths because they bored the driver to take the bus and run it off the road somewhere. And that noise, I think the noise wasn't heartbeats. I think it was the road noise from the expansion thing. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Didn't help the movie at all except make it annoying for everybody. Maybe it was heartbeats. Maybe that's what they were hearing. It was the beep, beep, beep from the beep, beep, beeper in the hospital. One has got to wonder. Okay. Now I'm going to go to Bobby, KD5BPX. Bobby, you've heard it all. You're probably still awake, or not. But what do you think? Is this movie something you're going to go watch? Does it remind you of anything you've seen in the past? And would you go watch that movie you've seen in the past, or this movie you've not seen yet in the future? From KE5I6.
Well, what somebody thinks about a movie is can be totally different between 2 people. I've always told my kids that the history, every villain is a hero, and every hero is a villain, depending on who was telling the story and who won. But I'm curious. I might go take a look at this movie and see if it holds my interest. One of the things I do here, if I don't watch a movie, I like to come in and listen, and I get some idea of whether or not I'd like to watch it. And of course, I think I'm fairly diversified. Like on Prime, at Wheel of Time, which is a fantasy type show on Prime Video, so I enjoyed it. But then again, sometimes I'll see a movie that's similar, and I click it off within 15 minutes or less. Yeah, I'm probably going to take a look at this one. This sounds like it's different. Once I get into it, I might change my mind, but give it a shot.
All right, Bobby. Well, first 30 minutes of the film kind of held my interest. I thought it was quite interesting. And actually watched, sometimes I fall asleep like everybody else does with a movie if it just isn't going to hold my interest. It did all the way to the end because I was curious about what was going to happen. And then, of course, the payoff is always the toughest part of any movie. Can it pay off? This one, in my estimation, did not, and it used the standard thing, and for all the reasons that we mentioned. But, oh well. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. We've got 9 minutes left for what is the regular ending time. The last part is everything having to do with whatever you want. Normally it's special effects or anything that you might want to add that you to the conversation that you haven't had a chance to do so yet. So rather than going down the list, what I'm going to do is go ahead and ask if you have additional comments that you want to make. Please come with your call sign, and I'll go in the order of the call sign. So if you've got additional comments on special effects or anything you want to say about the film, please come with your call now.
Inside BB.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
Okay, I got N5BB and NT5TM. I'll go ahead and give those guys a chance to speak, and then I'll give you another chance after that. So N5BB, Bill, go ahead. You're first.
Yes, this is Inside BB. So technical details. So the radio in the police thing that might have been amateur radio, but this is a police office, so it should have been police radio. It appeared to me from the look of it that it was a night kit radio. These are some kits and radios sold by Allied Radio back in the mostly the 60s and maybe very early 70s. And the movie, that part of the movie, was set much later than that. So the radio was way too old. So bad choice for the big radio they had. The talkies or whoever. Related to that, the guy said, "Oh, not only can I not hear anything, I can't get a frequency." That was meaningless. It's like, what did it, turn the knob and nothing is there? And of course, they didn't show us anything, no special effects. He just says, "Oh, I can't get a frequency. I can't. There's no frequency." Did we hear any noise, like an unsquelched radio? No, they didn't even turn the radios on. So that was done very poorly. It could have, somebody's doing a little bit of squiggling noise in there, but it was meaningless. So very bad. There's power on for everything. The elevators work, the lights work, everything works. How does that happen? If there's no humans, why? How is that just mysteriously keeping? How come the telephone doesn't work, but the lights work? How come the elevator works, but the radio doesn't work? Meaningless. Just doesn't make any sense at all. The traffic lights are working. So those things bothered me. The wall of smoke. Yeah, we've seen that before. So was it okay? It was just as bad as the other ones. Just the monster, horrible special effects. I hated it. I mean, maybe some people liked it. I thought it was just totally goofy, useless, didn't make any sense at all. N5BB.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. Somebody mentioned that last night while we were watching the movie live about the night kid, I guess. I'm not familiar with it, but he immediately picked it out. Another ham. Okay, Tony, NT5TM, your comments. Please go ahead from KE5ITM.
Hey, Tom, whenever I trash a movie, I like to mention something good instead. And I have seen, so little Star Trek in my life. But I do remember an episode where Dr. Crusher was the last one left on the Enterprise, and I was frantically Googling for it. It was called Remember Me from Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 4, Episode 5. Thanks to an accidental warp experiment, she found herself in a contracting universe where more and more characters just kept disappearing without explanation, and no one but her could remember them. At one point, I remember she even asked the ship's computer, like, what's the universe? And the computer says, well, the universe is a small bubble 705 meters in diameter. And that's what I thought of with the big giant sphere of fog contracting ever smaller. I want to rewatch The Birdcage. I want to rewatch The Day After. I want to go watch some old The Next Generation. But I sure don't want to rewatch this. NT5TM.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you very much, and that makes perfect sense. All right, Bill and Tony have had their final words. Anybody else have anything they want to bring? Come with your call now.
NV5F.
Virginia, you're going to get the final word. Please go ahead.
Okay, I'm actually responding to Tony remembering the episode Remember Me. I think that's a really good episode. It is that similar sort of nihilistic dread plot of the universe shrinking and nothingness taking over everything, but the premise for why that's happening to Dr. Crusher is pretty good in the Star Trek universe, and I will highly recommend that episode, and I just think it's a good Dr. Crusher story, and it shows a lot about her character, and I'm glad he thought of that, because when y'all were talking about the ever-encroaching dark fog or the nothing from Neverending Story, that episode of Star Trek The Next Generation actually did come to mind for me, so anyway, that's all I have. Everybody have a good night. This is NV5F.
All right, thank you, Virginia. And don't go away because you'll be happy with next week's movie. Okay, by the way, I remember that episode as well, and it was a good episode. A very similar story as far as the shrinking universe with the warp core bubble. It kept me guessing towards the very end, some of the lines, and they're in the big galaxy starship, and she and Picard are there together, and she says, why do we need this big starship? There's just the two of us. And Picard says, well, we never needed it, even though there's seats everywhere for other people. But in any case, very, very good episode. I agree with you there. Okay, this is what we're doing. I'm making a program change for next week because we had some clunker movies. I have decided, thanks to the insistence of Virginia, for one, for something a little more mentally stimulating. So we're going to go with a rewatch we haven't done in quite a while, 2010, the year we made contact. That film, I think we've done a couple of times before, but you know what? It's okay. It's a sequel to 2001: A Space Odyssey. We do a lot of comparing and contrasting between them, so we're going to do that, unless somebody's got a better idea now, or if you want to send me an email, go ahead and do that. That'll be cool, and we'll do that. The other films are still there. There's a list. You can always go to Afterglow Movie on the Facebook page. Go under Guides, and then you'll see all of the movies coming up. I found some interesting ones for the future as well. We've got enough to go for 2024, to be honest with you, but I'll see what I can do about placing the last couple I found here over the last week or so. So I'm going to say 7-3 to everybody. I'm going to go watch. We got classic Lost in Space is now back after a month off hiatus. If you haven't seen those, by all means do so. It's over on MeTV over here. Very early episodes, which were quite good, I thought, are on right now. I don't know which one this is. I think this was Welcome Stranger or something. I'm not sure. Anyway, nice photography as well before it turned into that crazy thing that it became. So I'm going to say 7-3, everybody. Have a good evening. See you all here next week. This is KE5I6. Clear. Bye.
And I, of course, strongly recommend the Astrid, A-S-T-R-I-D, series, which is starting right now on KERA, Channel 13, N5BB clear.
Well, Bill, I did start to watch one last week because there was no Lost in Space, and as what happens is I fall asleep and I didn't wake up. I did wake up, obviously, but I didn't wake up until much later. I watched part of it. It looked quite interesting. The only problem is that you can't listen to it because it was in, French, I think. But at any rate, I did watch a little bit of it. It does look interesting. Okay, I'm out of here. KE5I.
Yes, for those of you that haven't seen it, Astrid is a kind of autistic detective. And anyway, it's a British. It's a French detective series. Pretty interesting. N5BB. See you. Good night.